Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim. Hope you are doing great. Came across videos from Latinos talking about their proximity to whiteness and also whiteness in America and how they also voted and how racism is just a huge racism, colorism, and all that has played so much role to some certain things going on in their community. And one thing I love about all the whole discussion is that the fact that they knew that this is affecting them, the fact that they knew that also as a Latino, some of them do not also see them as Latino. Why? Because they have also bought into white supremacy, or they feel like maybe they have lighter skin and all that. For that reason they have that proximity to whiteness, when in reality they do not have shit, right? And some of them are talking about how why is it that there are so many Latinos that are ICE agent. And that is something that I do not understand, how a Latino man is an agent, like ICE agent, grabbing his own people and like acting all bossy and all, like trying to be, I don't know, but it doesn't make any sense, sincerely speaking. I have seen several videos of them, like, grabbing people, grabbing their own people for no reason. I mean, that, I don't know how they do it, but the stupidity needs to be studied on a serious note. But then this is just who they are. And let's
Mexicans and black people haven't really always had the best relationship, and now I know why. It was a survival tactic because they wanted to be treated as people. And the closer the proximity to whiteness, the closer their proximity to a human being, essentially, to being treated as if they were human. In the Jim Crow era, Mexicans were segregated too. Schools, housing, restaurants. Mexican Americans weren't considered white, but they weren't legally black either. And that gray area, it kind of gave them an opportunity to wedge themselves in there. And that's what they did. In 1897, the Texas court ruled that Mexicans were white by law, meaning they could avoid black only spaces and access certain rights that black people were denied. That meant no sitting at the back of the bus, no colored only schools. Instead, Mexicans got their own segregated schools that were better funded. And in court cases, they'd argue, we're white, we're just Spanish speaking, to avoid harsher sentencing. But it wasn't about fairness. None of this was about fairness for them. It was about protection. They wanted to protect themselves. They wanted to protect their people. In a country built on racism, being one step above black meant survival. Some Mexican Americans leaned into that, a little too much if you ask me. And then we have the others that fought alongside black people, especially during the civil rights movement. This history isn't about blame, but I never promised that I would sugarcoat anything. This is about understanding how white supremacy pits people against each other. And honestly, we're still letting that system divide us today. I get it. I do. I'm a black woman. I'm part of that 92%. I am. I see what's happening. I see what's happened. I feel the hurt. I do. I feel the pain. I feel the betrayal. I feel all of it. I'm not comfortable playing into the trap of white supremacy. I can't let myself do that.
Do you want to talk about upholding white supremacy and how Latinos play a role into it? Because if you do, you've come to the right place. Because one of the biggest disappointments that came out from the election and Kamala Harris losing the election is me discovering how many Latinos not only voted for that man, but actively voted against our community and actively spoke ill will of immigrants when so many of them are descendants of immigrants themselves. Let's talk about that. And how so much of this is tied to the need to feel close to whiteness, the proximity to whiteness. Think about that, okay? And I want to play this video so that you can put things into context, because this video of a dad talking to his son in Spanish about his immigration story. It's in Spanish, so I'll translate it afterwards, at least the main points, and then we'll do a little analysis, because we need to talk about this, because this did play a role. This did contribute to a black and Asian woman not being elected to the highest office in the land, okay? It did. It's connected. So let me play the video.
Esa gente, también así me vine. Y porque así me vine, naciste tú aquí, por eso no tienes el mismo pensamiento que nosotros. Esas personas no tienen ninguna oportunidad en nuestras tierras, por eso es que migran.
And the clip is longer, but I'll summarize what the dad said. The dad is telling the son that people will immigrate to this country because of lack of opportunity or issues that they're encountering in their own country. And I know a lot of people out there are like, oh, well, that's their problem. But can you imagine, and this is where the lack of empathy plays a role. Can you imagine if you had no opportunities in your country, or if you were in a war-torn country, or if you fell into a dictatorship? Can you imagine feeling like the only option you have is to immigrate to another country, and for that country to be like, nah, or for the people of that country to be like, don't care about you. No. And to do that to your own people, to your own people. The dad is telling him that the son gets the benefit from being a citizen because the dad immigrated. Because he immigrated. The why behind the story is also important. Okay, but let's talk about how this impacted the election, because I think that's really important. There is a socialization of our people, the Latino community, when we are growing up, that we are told to aspire to what the Americano, what the American does. And Americano is synonymous with white. It's not just any American, it's what the white person does, because it is observed that white people are treated differently. That is a thing. And within the Latino community, there's also anti-blackness, there's colorism, there's machismo, and all of those things. There's internalized racism, this need to be close to white people that exists, and it absolutely contributed to a Black and Asian woman not being elected to office. That absolutely contributed, and I will stand on that. And if you understand this, comment. Let me know, because I cannot be the only one that believes this. Follow for more, because we're going to be talking about this way more.
Okay, so even though I'm feeling very defeated, as many women are feeling today, I still wanted to hop on here and make a quick video, because I don't know what's worse, the fact that this man is reelected. I'm having deja vu in the worst way back to 2016 and just experiencing everything that I experienced back then, but 10 times worse, because we all know he is beyond unpredictable. So there's that. But I also just really quick wanted to address, because I think what's even worse, especially as a Latina, is the fact that my people were the ones that voted this man in, and predominantly Latino men, overwhelming Latino men. So yeah, but I just wanted to point two things out, because a lot of people are shocked by this, and a lot of Latinos, or Latina women specifically, were not shocked at all, and I'm gonna tell y'all why. Because again, no matter what background, whether you're Dominican, Venezuelan, Mexican, whatever the fuck, we all know that Latino culture has a lot of flaws, and one of the biggest flaws being misogyny and machismo, more in some cultures than others, but it still is very much alive. So there's that. And then aside from that, there is this proximity to whiteness that Latinos always want. It's the acceptance. And mind you, a lot of Latinos, there's certain people that are white passing, so they look gringo. And I mean, shit, even my own dad being one of those people. My dad definitely looks white American until he speaks and has, you know, his Venezuelan accent, stuff like that. But yeah, so there's people that look white, so they want to be, especially over time as they become US citizens and are more assimilated to like US culture, you are constantly chasing that acceptance from white people. So those are the two major, and again, these things are very internalized, so of course nobody's about to sit here and verbally say that those are the reasons, but I'm telling you those are the reasons.
To this day, I still get asked, why? Why did your people, why did Latinos vote for him? And frankly, I have multiple answers to that. But before I even get there, I need you to know I'm not one of those people. I am a progressive, I am a liberal at heart, and that is how I vote. But I think there is something, a greater conversation to be had as to why so many Latinos, including those of younger generations, voted in the way that they did and voted for him. At the root of it all, I truly believe it is a multitude of things. It's like an ingredient box, if you want to call it that. And that is proximity to whiteness, colorism, anti-blackness, and machismo, along with an uprising in conservative values. and people thinking that that is what they want and that's what's going to allow them to go ahead and progress with this competitive mentality, scarcity mindset that sometimes folks think, well, if like they start to win, then I'm not going to be able to win. So all that put together played a huge role as to why Latinos voted in the way that they did. Now, the Latino community, okay, is not a monolith, because folks from Mexico are different from those from Cuba or from Venezuela or from Nicaragua. So we're not all the same. But the things that I mentioned in terms of the ingredient box, that does play a role in a large portion of the Latino community, and frankly across the world, when it comes to people wanting to be white or wanting to fit in with white people. And that plays a role here in America in terms of people also thinking, well, if white people are treated in a better way, then how can I go ahead and fit in that way so that I'm also treated in that way? So then you have people, Latinos, that see the mass deportation signs and somehow are able to go ahead and separate themselves from those they think are going to be the ones that are going to be deported. They're able to say things like, well, that's not me. That's not my family. My family came here legally, or I'm a citizen, or whatever that may be. When in reality, a number of those folks that are in power just see brown, they see Latino, they see the same box, unfortunately. And so that's important to go ahead and note too. Along with, if you go back to the contest, of course, in November, you had a Black and Asian woman running for office. You had a lot of Latino men that had problems with that because a lot of Latino men didn't want to see a woman win, especially a woman of color. So if you have all of that put together, and then you have propaganda, misinformation, disinformation that was targeted at our community, mind you, okay, to get Latino men, especially younger Latino men, to believe all of these things, to believe that if the immigrants are doing better, that somehow they were going to go ahead and lose. When that's not the truth. It's not. So I need us to have a greater conversation, because frankly, a lot of Latinos are not ready to have this conversation or don't want to, but we need to have the conversation, okay? And if you want to have more of these conversations, follow for more. Let's keep the conversation going. And let's have it.
So you tell me if Latinos aren't the most successfully colonized, considering they are voting people in that continue to hurt our community, all for their proximity to whiteness, because for some reason they believe that that's upward progression when a white man's leadership has never led us to liberty. They believe that they are Christian and Catholic by choice. And it's not by choice. It's by observational knowledge and colonization. The people around them were Christian and Catholic. They believe that their religion is the optimal religion and will not study other ones because that goes against their primary quote unquote belief. But it's not their belief. It was the colonizers' belief, because when the Spanish came with a Bible in one hand and a gun in another. And in order to successfully colonize a group, you need to do a couple of things. One, remove their language. They've made us believe that Spanish is our own tongue, which is why we mock people saying, tienes el nopal en la cara and you don't speak Spanish, not even knowing that that term is also derogatory to mean you look indigenous and you don't speak Spanish. The words of the oppressor. You and I also speak bastard Spanish, not authentic Spanish. A lot of our Spanish is mixed in with indigenous words. And if you go to Spain, they will let you know that. Two, introduce an organized religion. One that says that you will obey the law of the land, that you will obey your mother and your father, because they didn't come with women. The Spanish just came with men, and then they raped our children, which is why they were also heavy on the you must forgive. To further that, then you have to eradicate their beliefs and their spirituality. You also need to steal all their riches so they don't remember, as well as removing all of their hard work that they've done. We know the Mayans were leading in astronomy. So they burned books, they remove all the monuments that they had, and they stripped them away from everything that they knew. Then they create a caste system, one where they say that the lighter you are, the more intelligent, the more powerful you are. And they do this because they created a white Jesus, when we know the Bible says that Jesus had bronze skin and hair of wool. Last time I checked, white people don't have hair of wool. They don't. Black people do, though. When you create a liberator of sins to look white, You convince the indigenous community that whiteness somehow means greatness. Then the colonizer introduces racism in their mind because they target a few while lifting up the rest. For example, we had the Spanish on the top, the mestizos that were mixed with Indian and Spanish. Then you had the mulattos, and then so on and so forth, and then the negros, right? And when you have this separation, you can target a group of people and say they are the bad ones. We should all go against them, while not understanding that the oppressed is a collective experience. It doesn't matter if we were mestizo or mulatto or negro. Yes, the negro suffered a lot freaking more. But that doesn't mean that the mestizo and mulatto didn't. All in all, to say, racism in the Latino community, which I don't even like saying Latino. That's like fucking saying you're American. Like, what kind of American are you? Are you European American? Are you Black American? Are you Mexican American? Latino is a term that means you just speak Latin from Rome. Last time I checked, we're not Roman. And Hispanic just means you belong to Spain. I'm sorry, I don't belong to Spain. I prefer the term indigenous, but that's for another day. When you engrave colorism, remove someone's religion, remove their language so they don't pass down stories or beliefs, then you have successfully colonized a group. Not just colonize them by ripping this stuff away from them, but colonize their mind. Once this all takes place, this means that the indigenous community will no longer understand that the land is their mother, that they only take what they need. And that is what the Europeans wanted. They wanted ownership. They could not understand how the indigenous people gave so freely, how they didn't own anything. In fact, Christopher Columbus mocked the Taínos to say how foolish they were, that they did not believe in ownership. So now that we've discussed a little bit of history, how does that play into today? We lump ourselves up with the term Latino and Hispanic, and then even then we can't even go deeper. And when we ask what type of Latino and Hispanic you are, you only know your nationality. You only know Guatemalan and Mexican, which again is kind of like American. What kind of Mexican are you? What kind of indigenous tribe do you come from? Many people to this day do not know. So when you have separated someone so far away from their origins, guess what? The colonizer has won, because you forgot that you're native to this land, that we're indigenous to this land. They make you believe that you are the outsider when the outsider.
I still get asked, how did Latinos, how did your community vote for him? And honestly, it is multi-layered and multifaceted. Let me tell you that I am also not one of the people that voted for him. And I say it's multi-layered, multifaceted because I think there's multiple reasons. Sure, there's a concern around misinformation and disinformation having taken advantage of our community or having people confused. I think that's one part of it. Another part of it is, frankly, racism, misogyny, the fact that many Latinos didn't want a Black and Asian woman to take office, the fact that many Latinos thought that because he is a man, that he would somehow save the economy or do a better job at the economy, when in fact she actually has a degree in economy and fully had laid out plans and told us that what would be happening as far as the tariffs are concerned. Kamala Harris did tell us what would happen, and here we are. But I also say that it's multifaceted, multi-layered, because there is machismo that exists and internalized oppression, internalized racism that exists within our community, the Latino community. There's also colorism that exists within our community. So many of us are raised and brought up to believe that darkness is a bad thing. That if you're more claro, if you're more lighter, that you will have it better, or that you are better. Like, many of us are socialized, whether or not even our families are aware of it, but are socialized to believe things like that, to want to be closer to whiteness, to be bought into proximity to whiteness. And a lot of people don't want to talk about that. They don't want to admit it. Whatever, that is their own thing. But I am naming the things that are prevalent in our freaking community. Anti-Blackness is a major thing that exists in our community. Okay? All of this stuff contributed. But I will also say the lack of empathy for immigrants. The fact that people feel like because they're second generation or third generation that they are better because they didn't have to immigrate here. This country was stolen from indigenous people, from white people that immigrated here. Again, something that people don't seem to want to talk about or acknowledge, but it is the reality. So for people to feel like, oh, well, you know, they're only going to take the criminal. No, you see what's happening right now. You see what's happening right now. And Latinos, so many Latinos that are now being like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it was going to happen. Oh, I regret my decision. Oh. Well, look at you now. Look at us now. Look at what's happening. Look at what's happening. If you want more of this type of content, follow for more. Comment if you understand. Comment if you understand.
People ICE agents. I've heard this question posed and like discussed so many times on here, and I think that it would be easy to come on here and like provide another emotionally charged like fuck Latinos for ICE and like those are not my people, and as a Mexican American Latina, like I disown them and like they were traitors. And yes, I do feel all those things. I do. And I don't want to just participate in like charged emotion exchanges and like siloed conversations. I want to start having the more critical thinking of like, why is this actually happening? Especially as someone that's from that group. Like I want to talk with other Latinos and then also other people that aren't Latino that are wondering this. One explanation that I've come to, not to excuse the evil behavior in any way, but of course it's like money, power, survival for a lot of people. This is another job, even though it's up close and personal, like being a traitor to your own people in a lot of ways. It is another job. But I think on a deeper level, there is an internal warring that often happens in a lot of Latino people in general because of this. I just realized this, Matt. Like because of the history of Latin America and like how many times like our ancestors and our journeys have involved warring between like the colonizer and the colonized, between like Europeans and indigenous people and African people, and like there's choosing sides is like a generational curse that keeps happening and happening and happening and happening and happening. And it's like I can't even imagine how many times that's happened in my own bloodline. And like maybe that happened with at a certain point like my mixed ancestors turning their back on indigenous ancestors or whatever was happening. So I think that a greater conversation around our history is needed and a reckoning with that, instead of just being like, we're all Latino, we're all mestizo, yay, let's like be unified. Like clearly we're not. And like how could you possibly unify like all of these countries? Like Latin America is so big. Latino is like such a big concept. So I don't think it's surprising that so many Latinos are choosing to be ICE agents. I do think they need to be held accountable. I do think they need to be called out. I do think like Latinos need to have hard conversations with each other, not just be like, oh, we never talk to Jose again. He's ousted. But like, why is this happening? Like, in what other ways do we turn our backs on each other all the time for the sake of survival, for the sake of power, for the sake of assimilation, or like a piece of the puzzle? And that's something I'm interested in like facilitating more of on this app, or just in general in the work I do in equity and justice space. Yes, proximity to whiteness and power. That's all. That's why Latinos turn against other Latinos. And I've seen it so much within my own family. We're Mexican. I'm Mexican American. My dad came here from Mexico. And that whiteness, that pursuit of whiteness is also so present in Mexico. So it's like, I think sometimes people come over here from Mexico and then they double down on the whiteness for safety and for security, not to excuse it. And it just feels like such a parasitic energy, whiteness and white supremacy. And it'll make you do things that end up being like very cruel actions, like being part of the
Latinos want to be white so bad. Now, this is a question that a lot of communities tend to ask about the Latinos. Now, while I don't have an answer for the full Latino community, I do have an answer for the Mexican community. Let's take it back to the 1500s when Hernán Cortés invaded Tenochtitlan, modern-day Mexico. And something you need to understand is that it wasn't just Españoles getting off those boats. It was also African slaves. When Cortés and his men took over modern-day Mexico, they implemented what is called the caste system. Have you ever heard the phrase mejora la raza? Yeah, it comes from that. Mejora la raza means to better the race. Better the race means marrying white. And that was implemented over 500 years ago. And yeah, sure, it was 500 years ago. We should get over it and stop being so colorist, classist, and racist. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of the generations are trying to break this or have broken this type of mentality. Meanwhile, you still have the older generations who do think this way because we still had Españoles and a lot of other European countries come to Mexico during the early 1900s. And these Europeans would walk down wherever there was indigenous or Afro-Mexican and look down upon them, calling them racial slurs like indios, prietos. Have you ever heard indio bajado del cierro? That's a racial slur for our indigenous people because the more indigenous you are, the more away you were from the city, the less class and education you had, and you were considered lower than everybody else. Again, leading back to the caste system, even though it's 500 years later. So why is this still happening and it's 2025? The older generation of Mexicans did go through a lot of prosecutions. Mexican Repatriation Act that happened in the 1920s, Operation Wetback that happened in the 1940s, the wet lines along with the lettuce protests that happened in the 1960s, and even though time and time we've seen again that Mexicans uniting with the Black community, it's a lot of things done, it's still part of the system to be racist against anybody that is darker than you. And if you're dark, they teach you to go lighter, to aim to be lighter. So if you marry somebody that's lighter than you or white, you're saved. Now, again, I want to emphasize that this is not everybody in the Mexican community. A lot of people have been breaking this mentality, especially in the country of Mexico. The country of Mexico has been more accepting to our indigenous people and our Afro-Mexicans. Mexico has always been a melting pot when it comes to different nationalities and ethnicities. That's why many people are trying to break this thought process that was implemented again over 500 years ago by colonizers. So if you see a Mexican with this type of mentality, it's a colonization mentality that they still have yet to break. This is why it's important to speak on the history that the colonizers tried to erase, to educate one another so the next generations to come know where they come from and they stay united. Let me know what you guys think.
And minorities, because a lot of minority groups, for example, the Asian community, the African American community, think that they're immune to what is happening with ICE and the Mexican community. I get it. A lot of us look white. A lot of us act white. That does not make us white. Just because you are in close proximity to whiteness does not make you white. And you still have a target on your back. Because I've seen a lot of videos of...
This is all I got from this video. And before I start, I am going to ask, why are there so many Latino ICE agents? Let me start with that. Because I don't know how you can be a Latino, right? And you join ICE. Most people that are being targeted are even Latinos. I'm not telling you that are completely, totally, but once they see them, and there was a video that I watched today. I didn't know how they did that. ICE agents, I mean, like waiting for people where they went for their hearing, for their passport, something like, immigration, something, legal stuff, like, they will wait for them somewhere. Once you're coming out, they will just grab you. And I am seeing them, like, Latinos grabbing themselves. I don't know how, but there are some jobs that I will not do. I am being truthful, especially when it comes to grabbing people for no reason, especially working with a fascist. Let me use that word, especially working with a fascist, because at this point in time, you are seeing everything this man is doing, except you are also a racist, or someone that has that fascist attitude too, because some people have it, but the only time they practice it is only in their houses, or maybe sometimes with their friends, maybe because they do not have power yet. You are not seeing all of it manifest, but they have all of it, right? I don't know, but I think it's all shade of crazy. I won't do that kind of job, and I will not go around grabbing people that I know that are trying to stay back in their country legally, just because I do not want to see them anymore. And there are people like you. There are some jobs I won't do. I don't care. Some people really, like one of the ladies say, some of them want power. Some just want, some are probably need money. But sometimes I feel like it is not about money. Some people probably just want to have that power, taste that power, enjoy that power, drink it. Like, I don't know, but this is how I feel. There are some things that I have turned down that I do not want to talk about, right? Because probably it's against my ethics and all that, and I cannot. If you notice, there is even how I talk about, like, there are some things that I see online that it's going on, and there are some I don't bring here. I do not bring it because I cannot come here as a Black person to be probably being pissed at, maybe, let's say, as a Nigerian being pissed at a Black person. Why do I have to be pissed at you? When I see you, I see my reflection. There are some things we don't even have to talk about. But then these people will look at me and look at themselves and tell themselves that they are that there is something different between us. And then when you ask them, what is that? Some of them have, like, really do have dull color, like me. Do you understand? Like, and they are telling you that we don't have this, like, maybe we don't look alike. I know we might not look alike facially and all that, but, like, man, your skin and my skin are the same, and we are all oppressed. Then why am I even trying to fit into? And it's just like, for example, let's assume that I bleached my skin, right? Just go somewhere, get my skin all bleached up, and I am all light skin, and I travel to maybe Russia, for example, and and then fix a long hair, and I am trying to also tell them that I am as white as they are. I'm sure they will be very, very offended. One is, no matter how much I bleach my skin, right? You must know you must know okay, even if you don't know I am African, first of all, when they see you, they might think you are, without you speaking, or even some of them will even mistake your accent, no matter how bad it sounds, as American, because some of them probably may have not traveled and all that. But now let me tell you, Black people, there are some countries you go to, once they see you, the first thing they ask you is, are you American? The first thing they ask is, are you American? Because they know Black American. Or they ask you, are you from Caribbean? And then they will ask you, they will just be asking you all this, which means they knew about all these places, right? So no matter how much I try to look like they will know. So why do I have to force myself to feed as a Russian, or to be like a Russian, when I can be a Black woman, maybe a Black woman in Russia? That does make sense. You can have your own thing and still be very. See, one thing I love about Black people is that Black people don't swing. When it comes to all, they don't swing. Not them. No matter how you try, they will tell you, this is me. This is how it's been. It's either you accept it or not. And that's why people know more about Black people, about Black culture, about Black history, because actually Black history is also American history. So all this white supremacy, supremacy or proximity to whiteness, and voting against their own interests, because at this point in time, it is whooping everybody's ass. I love the fact that they are the ones talking about it, not anybody trying to help them talk about it. They are the ones talking about what it's also going on in their own community. I will draw my curtain here. Bye for now.